Okay, at this time, I call for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 19, 2022. Motion by Elena, second by Ms. Levesque. All in favor?
Aye.
Actually, I'm gonna abstain on that because I wasn't. So it should be 1, 2, 3, 6 in favor, 1 abstention. Mr. Blake, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Just one deletion. We do not have an executive session for legal matters. I was going to have a conversation with you all about a pending legal matter, but our attorney needs to meet with you about it anyway. So it's pointless for me to talk through things when you guys are going to have questions when I don't have the answers that they have anyway. So we'll probably send something out to try and schedule a Zoom meeting with legal counsel. It's regarding the Stroud project. An ongoing legal matter with that.
Okay, very good. Report of the superintendent. So
Good evening, everybody. As Mr. Malachi mentioned, this is the last meeting we are going to stream through Zoom. And we've been talking about this over the months. We are one of the only districts doing this still, but there are significant costs that come legally with streaming our meetings that if we were to continue doing this for the year, it would amount to the cost of a full-time faculty member. So in discussions with the board, we all feel it's best to put our money into our people and not necessarily into the internet. So meetings will still be obviously available in person for all you fine folks who like to come in person. And we are exploring taking the meetings on the road again and trying to do some meetings within the school. So maybe if we're all lucky, Chris, Rob, and I will sing some songs for you on the road again as well, just to maybe get more people to come to the meetings.
said if we're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah.
I take the opposite view.
Well, Chris usually gets paid to sing in public, so I don't know if he'll do that for free, but we'll ask him. So in any event, this is our last streamed meeting through Zoom. Also, Rob and I had a great meeting last week with our architects and construction team, the initial processes of looking at the design for the 5-6 school and kind of what needs to get done with that relative to making sure we have all of our information in order and submitted to SCD in an effort to get a May referendum out there. So if we can get to May and get SCD to approve everything for a referendum and vote in May, and it is successful, you will probably see a new school built for the beginning of best case scenario, probably looking at the 2027-2028 school year. So if we can't get to May, you're looking at 2028, 2029 for a new school to be built. General operations for a construction project is at least 2 years of submittals and planning phases. For a full school, you're probably looking at least 2 years for the actual construction. So that's where my 4-year time frame comes in. Could be as many as 3 years for a construction or more than 2 years for the submittals. It all depends on SCD because it's not a simple little project, but we do hope that we'll be able to get preliminary submissions done before the end of the calendar year. Start having some conversations with the public about the types of spaces that will be in the building. The first hurdle is getting with SCD to say, here is the square footage that we need. Here are the types of things we're going to have in the school. So SCD can say, here's how much money we think the school is valued at for aidability purposes. That will be able to help us learn kind of what that target number is for local share. Down the road, FEMA will reimburse the local share, but not until after the school is built, constructed, and paid for. Then FEMA will reimburse whatever that money is. So ultimately, we don't foresee this being an impact on the taxpayers, but the way things work through is not easy, to say the least. And because it's not a building that exists, there is no what's called building aidable units assigned to it right now. And that's the trigger that helps the school district know what the cost is going to be to the community. So until we give them some kind of a square footage, how many kids we plan to have there, and what the purposes of the square footages will be, it's really hard to say much more to the community other than we've started the process. Our architects are aware of the types of things we want in the building, we want to see there. So now they'll start putting all numbers to that and working their magic with SCD. So good start. I'm hopeful that sometime before the end of the calendar year, which, believe it or not, is not that far away, we will be able to have some kind of public conversation about what that will all look like. So stay tuned with that. We'll try and give you updates as frequently as we can.
We're still looking at the turn road sites.
They've identified the Turn Road site as the best location for the 5-6 school yet. Also, just so folks are aware, the end of marking period 1 at the secondary level is upon us. So parents out there, if you have kids in grades 7 through 12, I'd encourage you to be paying attention to their grades, get on parent portal, have conversations with their teachers. Along with that, between now and the next board meeting, elementary pre-K through 6 parent-teacher conferences will occur. And so those are happening November 1st through the 3rd. So families out there, if you have older kids, you should be looking out for your first marking period grades. And if you have younger kids, you should be looking out for your parent-teacher conference with your child's teacher. Friday night, RFA football football is hosting a breast cancer awareness event. So if we ask that you wear pink if you're going to the game, if you are a breast cancer survivor or currently battling breast cancer, the team would like to honor you between the first and second quarters. There'll be an announcement, but they plan on having anybody that is either a survivor or currently battling the illness to join them on the track for a brief moment of recognition. So I thank RFA Football and Touchdown Club for doing that. The 50-50 proceeds, I'm told, are going to breast cancer awareness. So appreciate them all doing that. Always a wonderful thing. And last two things I have is for those that aren't aware, next weekend, not this coming weekend, but next weekend is the State School Boards Association Conference. The first time they'll be in person, I think in 3 years. The last time I think they had it in person was 2019. So we got about half our board going to that. So looking forward to that. And then this week, if you are not aware, is State School Board Recognition Week. So on behalf of our entire staff and our community, I thank all of you here at the table and Mr. Nash for everything that you do. And we have Dr. Hempy here, former board member. It is not easy to be a school board member, as you all at the table know, and certainly sometimes are easier than others, but certainly not when there are controversial things going on. And everybody at this table certainly has dealt with their fair share of controversy in the past 6 months, or even our new members walked onto a board. Probably the most challenging time that any school board member can have is talking about redistricting in schools. So we thank you all for your continued volunteerism and support of our kids, our families, and our community, and our staff. So on behalf of the entire district, thank you all for everything that you do.
Thank you, Peter. Okay. Student board member report.
Hi. So next week we plan on having our first blood drive on Wednesday, first time in 3 years. We finished HOCO and for the most part went smoothly. Along with the football game, we will not be having our student section open, so we will not be selling tickets in school. We will be on the adult side, the parent side, and our students will be wearing pink. The art department wants to do a special holiday haunted hallway, so I think that's pretty neat. Yes, and we want to put Fun Day up back in the air because we haven't had it in 3 years, and Mr. LeBaron just wanted to get some ideas going, see if that's a possibility, and that's about all.
Fun Day. Is that like food trucks and?
I have no idea, but they can do whatever they want.
Yes, food trucks.
I don't have to
activities,
supervise it.
yes.
They can have
Yes.
whatever fun they want out there. I'm
It's-
not in supervising it. So.
When's that usually?
Last
Talking
week of
about the
school.
spring?
Last week of
Yes.
school?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
usually
staff's
food
organized that
trucks.
in the past, right?
It hasn't, I have never personally been a part of that. And I was a freshman in 2019, well, because of COVID, but hasn't been since like 2018.
Isn't there like a dump booth or something?
That was
There's a whole
great.
bunch
We had
of- Yeah,
slip
slip and slide.
Trucks,
Just to get it up in the air.
dancing,
We got a while.
pickleball,
Who do you need to talk to get that?
nobody.
Just-
Yeah.
Just do it. Put it on the calendar.
Yes. Okay. All right, sounds great. Thank you. All right, we're up to the point of the meeting for public comment. Do we have any people that would like to talk? Dr. Hampy, looks like you're up.
I'd like to remind you, Mr. Malachi, that the RFA Festival, the board president customarily goes and does perform.
Be more than happy. I don't know what I'll be performing, but I'll be more. than happy.
Fortunately, during my tenure, there wasn't.
Don't think.
No
They're
problem.
fun. You should do it.
I've done them before and I'll do them again.
Let's do it.
Greetings, everyone. I come to you tonight on, unfortunately, the event of the last Zoom meeting to hopefully remind you about transparency. Take you back to 2017 when I was the noob on the board and was a little surprised at how difficult it was for the public to get information about the board. At that time, we were broadcasting on cable access and we had to discontinue that because they were not closed caption. So suddenly we had no access to the community anymore. Fast forward to 2019, 2020, we had to go on Zoom with no prep, no prior experience. It was a bit of a challenge. But over that year and the following years, it has been a viable option. When I came onto the board and saw how little public comment usually brought, how much public attention we usually got, I investigated a startup at the time who was trying to make municipal activities much more accessible to the public. This was way before COVID, but they were doing video conferencing. They suggested posting your documentation on the internet, certainly way before the agenda gets posted 24 hours before, so that the public could actually consume it and appreciate what was going on. I thought I would get a common council member to support the initiative, and maybe we could do it as a team, and was a little, more than a little disconcerted when that board member returned with the attitude, we don't want the public to know what we're doing here. I'll let that person remain anonymous because that was not something I hoped to hear. I'm more than distressed to hear that the Zoom will be going away. I mean, I know it was coming from BOCES. I'm a little surprised to hear that it costs as much as a full-time faculty member, but you're still using Google Workspace. You can't use Google Hangout. You can't use any of the other streaming processes. I mean, I overheard a change to the public comment where you're thinking of using 2 periods of time. We tried that in 2019, and it was an unmitigated failure because everybody comes at the beginning of the meeting thinking they're going to be heard, and we took that right from the NISBA boilerplate. Do the agenda items at the beginning and anything that was covered during the meeting at the end, except you ended up with members of the public sitting through 2.5 hours of the meeting that they didn't want to sit through to be heard at the end of the meeting. These are pieces of the puzzle that institutional memory would hopefully guide you over. I'm looking at tonight's agenda with 19 policy reads. I went to the policy minutes. There are none. There was no documentation to this agenda. I'd love to see what these new policies are. One of them is public comment. A couple of them have to do with board operations. I'm going to guess the public would pretty much appreciate knowing what's going on in the administration of the board in the district. It's more than disturbing that you guys seem to be pulling up the wagons and not allowing the access of the public to continue. I have been a constant advocate after establishing the Ask the BOE email address to have that used as a digital public comment so that people don't have to make their way to district office. They can ask a question, have it read into the record, and answered at a board meeting. That has just sat there for a good long time. I'm hoping, I know many of you ran on the promise of transparency. I'm hoping that you remember that promise and do what you can to make sure that it's as easy as possible for the public to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hamid.
Thank you.
Next, we have Rhiannon Butler.
Sorry, I don't do this.
That's
I'm like sweating like crazy right now.
had no need to be there.
My daughter is in 8th grader this year. And I am at my wit's end with the busing, with the athletic busing for after school. She's on the swim team. We have 5 people. That is it. We have 5 kids. Getting the parents together to get these kids up to RFA from Stroud has been such a struggle. We are not cross country with as many kids as they have. With as many kids come from RFA down to student support. I don't know how many kids these are, but we need some answers on this busing. The last thing that we heard was that we don't know and that there's no more answer. We have winter sports coming up. Sports are a lot to these kids and they need to be transported. And the stress cannot be put on the parents anymore. We are leaving work early. We are stressing out our jobs and our children with trying to make everything that we can for them. If there's any answer, please give it to us soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reach out to her. Yeah, we can.
We have your email, Ms. Butler, so we'll get an answer to you as soon as possible, okay?
Thank you.
All right, I think that's the end of the public comment section. Do we have any departmental reports tonight?
I'll have Chris. I've got nothing for people operations. Jeff had his son, I think, broke his foot or leg today at school. Lucky guy, so he is home dealing with that. But for as far as people operations go, we're looking to probably add a special education position at the high school. And then we're still looking to fill, obviously, teaching aides and teaching assistants are the two big ones that continue to be the real big bugaboos that we have. Other than that, we've got our typical kind of in and outs happening. So I'll let Elena elaborate on that. If there's anything more from the committee meeting, it was a pretty quick committee meeting the other night. So I'll let Chris do his programs and Rob give a quick update before we have our audit presentation.
Okay,
Okay, great. Just so you're aware, all of the testing down at the elementary level for reading and math is complete. I will have that data for you at the next programs meeting. We've been working very closely with Innovair Griffiths Institute to create some more STEM opportunities for children down at the elementary level, especially in the summer. We're also working with BBS and Rico over at Griffiths Institute. Just want to give you a heads up on that. Just wanted to throw out our thanks to the Europe program. It's currently working with our sophomores and juniors this year. They have, through their grants, and working with our kids, have purchased all the drone soccer equipment for our kids to get up and running as one of the first schools in this area to have drone soccer as a competition.
what exactly is drone soccer? I saw
Drone
that.
soccer, if you've ever watched Harry Potter and you've watched Quidditch, it's very similar to Quidditch, except people are on brooms. They got balls in their hands and they got to put them through the
When are we
hoops.
gonna get that?
If you have an opportunity to go over to MVCC, it's on display out in their main hallway. The actual tournament net that they purchased for us. We have one tournament net. We also have one practice net for the students. We have two teams that are ready to get rolling and be able to start competing. We've gotten a lot of help from US Drone Soccer. Most of the tournaments will end up being held at Polytech in Utica, and really appreciate their help with all that they've done for that. Next thing, I did want to just mention that I've been working pretty close with Tim Thomas over at MVCC. We're looking at some different opportunities for our Propel program and trying to open up even more opportunities for kids to go into those Propel programs in their junior and senior year. So those are some of the things that I think Karen will have some things during the program meeting.
I'll give an update on today's meeting, yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Anything from facilities?
So food service, still see a policy coming through pretty soon. Chris has to update a policy for compliance with SED, so he's working on that with our attorneys. We do it about every 4 years, so. Transportation, again, we are short drivers due to COVID and due to absenteeism. We have about enough drivers that we need to function if everybody came in. Unfortunately, with illnesses and vacations, we just still don't have enough to do every run. And I want to commend the principals. They've been doing an excellent job in with the late buses at some buildings and holding the kids and getting information out to the parents so they know that their kids are going to be late on parents, where they've been doing a phenomenal job with that. I just want to commend them on that. We've also set up a text alert with each school. So for any kind of bus emergency that we have or shortage, we can text with the people, the administrators in that building, so they're aware immediately of what's going on as soon as we find out.
Hey, Rob, is it already in place?
What's that?
Is the text emergency thing?
Just got all set up today.
Okay, because there was an incident at Ridge Mills that probably would have been, Yeah, so, okay, so
I
it's-
just set them up today.
all right, so.
Alex, as you know, is out. Rodriguez, he's doing good. He sent an email today. He's healing up. The department's running smoothly. Mark and Rich are doing a great job. I spend a lot of time down there. We're finishing up the door project at RFA. Energy performance projects, we'll get an update to you on that. That's finishing up. As Peter said, we had a nice meeting about the new school. We continue to close out phase 3, which they updated Jan not too long ago on the first 2019 project to work on the March 22 project. I have a walkthrough with our insurance company for the flood for policy we have. We still have $1 million left out there, and we're walking through with the insurance company to try to get that claim in and settled and paid. And also, we got a fire, we're able to get a fire policy on the building, and they want to walk with that. So hoping to do both of those things. So, a lot going on, but everything's going pretty smooth. Thank you.
That's it for our departmental reports. So we're on to our work study session.
Next thing.
I don't blame you. No, no offense. I already sat through it once. All right.
How are you, my friend?
I don't think it's me.
Well, it's not.
Well, this is a good thing. I don't have food and products with us or anything like that, but it's, the report is something that you could be proud of. We did the audit of the, your financial statements for June 30th, 2022. And what I put in front of you is all the reports that we have, but I'm mainly going to stick to the executive summary up front. We went over everything in detail with the audit committee. And, you know, I do compliment the board on having the audit committee, and that we do meet at the beginning of the audit process and we meet at the end of the audit process. I have school districts that we don't meet at all. So it's good to have that type of communication, that understanding at the beginning of the audit. You know, we'll meet like in May or June timeframe and kind of go over the risk assessments and everything that we have. So that went well. In the spring, we go over internal control items. We do a lot of the testing of bidding and compliance and that type of thing, payroll items. We look at extra classroom and like that. But and then we come back in August and do our year-end procedures, which gets us to where we are right now. Dave was just able to file the reports with SCD today. We were able to give them the, I think today was the final day, got it in right under the wire. So with that too, it's like, you know, I like to thank Dave, Rob, and all the staff in the business office for helping us, you know, accumulate all the information that we did, and especially this year with the change in treasurer, it made it a little bit more, there was a little bit more bumps along the road to kind of get everything done and get everything adjusted and, you know, help get the books closed. But you know, Dave had a big part in doing that. So there was a lot of effort this year to get these books closed and the financial statements running so you could have them for tonight. On page 2 of this executive summary, these are the 3 main reports that we issue to you. And these are the best reports that I can give you. If you look at the first report, that's the independent auditor's report. That's where we're opining on the financial statements themselves. So we're saying your financial statements are free from material misstatement. They're in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And it covers various different statements too. We got a government-wide statement that we'll look at in a couple of minutes. We look at the fund, general fund, capital fund, special aid fund, school lunch fund. So we're into an opinion on each one of these items. And we also look at there's also a fiduciary fund that we look at, mainly has your extra classroom funds in there as well. The opinion also talks about the other supplemental schedules. There's a budget to actual schedule. There's a capital project schedule. There's all sorts of there's 2 pension reports in there, and gives you a history over the last 10 years. And then you'll see a budget reconciliation and a 4% calculation that we'll go over in a minute. But all that, we didn't have any issues at all. The next report that we issued is on internal control or financial reporting and compliance. And here, if we had any material instances or significant deficiencies, we would have to report that to you. We didn't have that level of deficiencies that we felt that we have to bring to your attention. And you can see in the middle, when you look in the thick report, those are the page numbers there these letters refer to. The last report that we issue is the single audit. And here's where we cover, you know, the federal programs. And you can see on the bottom, you know, on page 60 of the thick report, there's it lists all the federal programs we have. You can see about $17.7 million for 21-22 school year. And these are the programs that we audited: the nutrition clusters, so your school lunch, breakfast, the emergency connectivity program, and these in the COVID education stabilization fund. $6 million of that, if you remember, went back to reimburse the general fund for the 2021 expenditures. Next year, we'll probably end up having to do the special education cluster, so the 611, 619 programs, and then we'll probably have we'll have to do the ESSER programs again, just because they tell us they're high risk. The OMB tells us they're high risk, so we have to consider them high risk programs. So we'll need to audit that as well.
Do they give you the reasons why they're high risk?
It's just because they're COVID money, and there's a lot of money out there, so it's a concern, you know, industry wide.
Yeah, I just wonder what, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like, even like with the American Rescue Plan, you know, the city itself has, you know, funds with the American Rescue Plans. Well, you know, we definitely have to audit that. Anywhere there's COVID money, we're going to have to audit a little bit more closely than we have in the past.
Can we have a lot of new board members. Can you explain the trigger for high risk auditing? There's that, is it 3.5 million that requires the audit, or what is that? Can you just explain that a little bit about what triggers that to be brought in the level? Is it the A, B?
Oh,
You talked about the audit committee, but there's a lot of
Right.
folks who would benefit from understanding what
So
triggers that requirement.
every 3 years, we have to audit any program that's over $750,000. So it's usually there's 3 main programs we always audit. Usually the nutrition cluster, that's usually the special education, and the Title I. And so once we consider one of those low risk, because we've audited before, we didn't have any issues, there hasn't been any changes in the program director hasn't changed at all. So if we could call it low risk, but that means we have to look at type B programs, which are any program that's over 187,000, but lower than the 750,000 level of expenditures. And then we'll probably have, and that's the reason why you see that the emergency connectivity program being audited this year, because you see we didn't audit Title I or special education this year. And because we knocked those 2 out, because they were low risk, we had to consider all the other programs that were above that type B threshold, which is over 187,000. So we're constantly looking, and we have to do risk assessments on each of the programs to get up to that level. So if we take out, if we took out 4 programs, we have to audit at least 1 type B program that's high risk. So it makes it for a more thorough audit over the years, because we're constantly hitting different programs. Because in the past, when I first started back in about 34 years ago, we can pretty much like almost pick the program that we thought would get us over a certain threshold. So, you know, overall, if you're a low risk auditing, we have to audit at least 20% of your programs. If we consider you high risk, we have to audit 40%. Those percentages in the past used to be higher, but that's what they are right now. So you see this year, we would certainly met that. We had 70% of all your programs.
But there's other programs though, where you're not making that risk assessment, you're just being told to do it, like with ESSER, right?
Right, right. If the Office of Management and Budget comes out and they identify the program, they issue a compliance supplement every year. That's probably like 400 or 500 pages. You can go to the OMB website. I think it's under whitehouse.gov. And you can see on a list all the programs that they list in there. So Title I, special education, FEMA, there's a whole myriad of programs for every department, not only the Department of Education, but all the other departments as well.
Thank you.
Any questions on any of that? The next page is in the thick binder, behind the front flap, there's a letter regarding required communications. And we talked also to the audit committee about this and that. This letter is for required communication of any significant changes in accounting policy, accounting estimates, and it goes over it in detail. The biggest thing that we had to do this year was implement what they call GASB number 87 for leases. Now, the school district doesn't have any traditional leases that you would consider, like some school districts have vehicle leases. I have one school district that leases all their buses. So every 5 years, they get a whole fleet of new buses. But here, the only ones that qualify are the equipment that you buy from the BOCES. So every time you buy equipment from the BOCES still owns the equipment. They still inventory the equipment. They still own the equipment. They're letting you use it, but you paid it up front. So it's kind of like a prepaid lease. So we have to account for it. So that accounts for about $3.9 million worth of equipment. Because we go back like several years, but we go back about 5 years. And then we amortize the cost of that over the years. This is just on the government-wide financial statements. This doesn't affect your general fund or your budget. But overall, if you looked at the financial statements themselves and those government-wide financial statements, you'll see there's a prior period adjustment increasing last year's net position by $2.4 million. So it ends up being a little bit more of an informative financial statements because everything's disclosed. Because you might hear, even with for-profit entities, everybody's reporting these types of liabilities now because it's they want to get all this off-balance sheet information on the financial statements. So it's more transparent, so everybody can see it. Some of the stuff, like especially with these BOCES leases, this wasn't in the financial statements at all. It's all considered a service. And we were up till last week. We were still going back and forth with the state comptroller's office and the SED about how to consider these. But considering they just updated the BOCES accounting for their state report to include the account codes for this. I think we're in the good standings, and I think our interpretation is correct. We also talk about accounting estimates. There's several accounting estimates in the financial statements that are determined by actuaries. You hire an actuary for the other post-employment benefits, which is retirees' health insurance, and you'll see there's a very large liability on this government-wide financial statements, not your general fund to cover that, but between discount rates and that type of thing, that there's that's described in the notes. And then also with the pension, the state has their actuaries for the pension system, whether it's the teacher's retirement system or the employee's retirement system. So if you were looking at financial statements, there's probably maybe 9 pages of notes regarding just these items. We also attach adjusting journal entries. I'm not going to have you turn to them, but there were a little bit more journal entries this year. Like I said at the beginning, it was a little bit more needed this year. close the books, and I think it may be because of the change in the treasurer's position, but we had to have we had about 48 journal entries in total. 16 of which is just to convert the fund financial statements to the government-wide financial statements. So the fund financial statements don't have your fixed assets. They don't have the other post-employment benefits that we talked about. They don't have fixed assets. They don't have your bonds and that type of thing. So we have to convert those financial statements to the government-wide. So that accounted for about 16 of those journal entries. 32 of those, 32 of the 48 journal entries were to actually correct things that had been misstated. So but those have been made, working with Dave and everything. They probably had about another 60.
Where it says, and this might not be a you question, I don't know. Number 19 was the first one,
Okay,
the last sentence. So should we be worried about that?
no,
Okay,
so that's, this is regarding the district's overall deficit. If you turn to page 4 of the executive summary, this is your statement in that position. This is what that comment is
okay,
referring
that's, I was just making sure about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because in New York State, right now in your net position, your statement in net position on page 4 of the executive summary, it shows that you have a $215 million deficit in that. Now, this is not your general fund. These aren't your funds. This is when we roll everything all up together to create like a full accrual accounting. So it has all your, if you look up top, it has all your fixed assets, it has all your lease obligation, all your lease assets. And then down below, it has all your long-term liabilities. But in that long-term liability, you see it due more than 1 year, it is $380 million. And that's mainly $337 million of that is for that other post-employment benefit for retirees, health insurance that we talked about before. And so that's what causes that. There is no reserve or mechanism to fund that reserve in New York State. Other states, I think, might have one, like have some mechanism to do that. Or I think maybe even California might have some sort of reserve established for that. But New York State, there's no legal way for you to put that money aside. In the past, different schools were trying to put money into the employee benefit accrued liability reserve, but then the comptroller came up with a different definition. They had to liquidate those reserves. That was one.
The other one's just the top part. So there's nothing, I don't think that's your question. The contingencies, right at the top,
On the same page?
on the same page, yeah. So we don't have to worry about that either. All good,
Well, that's just your various
yeah,
legal liabilities.
but we're prepared for that.
Right.
Yeah. Just making sure.
It's like if we had a question on like one of these journal entries, like if we were just curious, would we just reach out?
Talk to Dave.
Probably Dave.
Yeah, any one of those journal entries you look at, if the account number has a GW in front of it, that's just converting the fund financial statements to the government-wide financial statements.
Okay.
We have to put all the journal entries in there to maintain our independence.
Okay.
So basically, you're getting it as a report that we made those journal entries. The management representation letter has it attached that you're approving those journal entries.
Are there any other fun acronyms that would help us along with like the GW is moving it?
Well, if it has an A, that'd be your general fund.
Okay.
And C would be the school lunch fund. F would be the special education. H would be the capital fund.
Is that listed somewhere?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's on the state controller's website.
Okay. I can go there. I can find it. Thank you.
I think the pages for the, because I know I liked it, because I thought, if you, I thought 28, 29, when you explain all the funds, I thought that was important. Like if you're not familiar with it, gives you a good overview.
Those pages will give you
Yeah,
all the balance
that's-
sheet. Each one of the funds.
Yeah.
I'm mainly sticking to the general fund.
That's the main one.
Yeah, can't see the GW, and why those are ones that he has to make. No matter what we do, they have to be done by the auditor.
Yeah, I mean, some of those,
Reclassification.
like, if you made bond payments, I have to reduce the actual bonds liability on the financing, so, but in your general fund, you expense that payment. So I have to reverse the expense and show it against the liability.
Makes sense.
I can show you our worksheets.
Yeah, each fund is like a different company. Think of it that way.
A separate entity.
That makes
Each one is
Right.
separate and has to be dealt with separately. So that's what makes it confusing.
So if you look at back on page 4 of the executive summary. Again, this is everything rolled up, and you can see under the asset section. You can see there's a net pension asset this year, about 40, almost $42 million, and that's because both the employees retirement system and the teachers retirement system are overfunded right now. The teachers retirement system is like at 113%, and the employees retirement system is at 103%. So last year that was a deficit, and this year it ends up being a surplus. So if you were to look at everything on the sheet regarding pensions, there's deferred outflows and inflows, and that's just because when the actuaries are change their estimates and stuff, the items become either a deferred inflow or outflow. But the net of all that, the net pension effect was about $17 million they added to your net position. You know, as opposed to the net other post-employment benefits, which netted out to a $330 million deficit. Some of the other items to point out here, you look at your down below, you see the bond anticipation notes. That's for your RFA project and your performance contract. If you add your existing bonds as of June 30th, about $37 million, you're about 62% of your constitutional debt limit. The overall non-current liabilities, there is a schedule in the notes that details all that out and includes items like the other post-employment benefits and the bonds and that type of thing. So there overall with a decrease of $24 million, but $12 million of that decrease was due to the other post-employment benefits. The next page, page 5, these are all your fund balances. Here's this kind of mimics that other pages in the financial statements, but it's just a summary of this year's fund balance and last year's fund balance, including all the reserves. You can see the total restricted assets with tonight's resolutions that will get you, that will increase $12 million, mostly to fund the capital reserve. And some of the reserves are within the normal range. You look at the employees retirement system, spend your annual bill is about $1.4 million for the employees retirement system. So you have about 3 years worth of in your reserve. There's no rule of thumb, but between 2 and 5 are normal. That 2 to 5 years worth of your employees retirement system bill. And then down below that is your teachers retirement system. It's a new reserve, and that's limited to funding of 2% of the prior year's salaries each year, up to a limit of 10%. So down below, you can see your unassigned fund balance, 5.2 million. That's about $292,000 increase from last year, and the overall increase was $8.4 million. Most of that, $6 million of that was due to the reimbursement from the Carissa funds to reimburse the general fund for the 2021 expenditures.
Can you say that just one more time?
Regarding the Carissa,
The surplus.
you know.
Yep.
Is
how it's-
$8.4 million, but $6 million of that was from a transfer from the special aid fund. See down there, that's your federal fund that has, that's where we're accounting for the Carissa money, COVID money.
Okay.
So that reimbursed the general fund for 2021 expenditures.
Okay,
So it was already out of the 21 column. So it just reimbursed it from the prior year. Down below that is the school lunch fund. You can see that has increased a lot over the prior year, by $886,000. And we're seeing this across the board from all our school districts. With the level of surpluses in the fund. You're limited to three months worth of expenditures. So that would equal about 754,000. So that you have to put a plan in to spend it down to get it to the 3-month limit. So you're over about maybe about $450,000.
And that's even after lunches are being paid for.
What's that?
I was surprised to find that out. I didn't realize that at the finance meeting. I learned that their kids haven't been paying for lunch for how many years?
Well, they did look through COVID didn't happen, but we started the federal program right before that, so they have free breakfast and lunch for all students, regardless of income.
You know, the increase in rates and the COVID money that's coming in for the school lunch fund, it's considerable amount of surpluses.
So spread the word. Danny, if nobody knows.
Down below that is the special K fund. A lot of that deficit there is really because of timing, because we're recording receivables that aren't available. They have to be available within 60 to 90 days. And usually those aren't available to outside that, so that's why it gets deferred. And then you end up with a deficit in the fund.
What's an example of special aid?
So special aid would be your Carissa money, all your federal awards that were on that page 60 of the
Mhm.
report. So it includes all your Title I money, includes all your 4408 program, the summer handicap program. So it includes a lot of different grants in that special aid fund. In the debt service fund, you have about $1.8 million available, and eventually that'll come back to the general fund to reimburse it for debt service. And down below that, you see the capital projects fund, and in the back, that's one of the supplemental schedules that details all that out. But mainly the deficit, or the $10 million, consists of the RFA project for about 7.2 million, and the energy performance contract projects for about 2.9 million. So those are all temporary. So once the permanent finance, once you bond, or there's appropriations from the general fund, that will be. The next page is a 10-year history of the general fund, where it's from. And I kind of go back a little bit more than 10 years, so I've seen it go way down. I've seen it where some of these numbers were negative in the undesignated portion of it. But you can see how much it's increased over the years. But down below, you can see some statistics down there. So the current ratio, the current assets to liabilities, so you're about 3 to 1. So your assets are about 3 times your liabilities. And this is all current. None of this is long term. Okay, so you don't have your bonds in here, you don't have your capital assets in here or anything. And then down below that, which is a very good number compared to the prior year numbers, and probably just where you want to be, 28%. Your percentage of your fund balance to the total expenditures. Now, it's not to your budget, it's to your actual expenditures. Because budgets can have, a little bit more than maybe you're actually planning, because you want to have some flexibility in the budget. So that's a very good place to be. It's pretty much average what we're finding from school district to school district. But it's probably a little above average for Rome school districts. I haven't seen that in a while here. And then down below the unassigned fund balance, you see it's 4%, which is the limit, but this is not compared to subsequent years' budget, it's compared to your actual 21-22 actual expenditures. I probably spent a little out.
We know.
Next page is your statement of revenues and expenditures. And so, usually we have a rule of thumb that, it's good to be within 5% of your budget. And your total revenues are within 4% of the budget. So you're over on the revenues from what you originally had in the expenditures of about 4.8% under budget, about $5.9 million. But down below that, you see other financing sources. At $6.2 million is right there. That's from the transfer for the Carissa funds. They kind of, so without the Carissa funds, you wouldn't have had that level of surplus. It would have been, it would still have been a surplus of about $3 million. But you ended up with the $8 million surplus. Next page, next couple pages are just graph presentations of the page 9 is the state versus local efforts. So these percentages don't add up to 100% because they're a percentage of the expenditures. So because we're comparing one set of data to another set of data, they'll never equal 100%. But it kind of like gives you an idea of the level of funding that we're getting at the state that covers your expenditures. And you can see the real property taxes, 24% of your expenses back in 2013. It's 27% in 21-22. State aid is pretty much level. And I think part of that increase and decrease between one year and the next is really because of the other sources. A lot of this, the rest of it is really graphic. I'm not going to, if there's any questions, I take them now if you want.
Overall, you said you were in good shape.
No,
Yeah, wanted to emphasize that.
Right now, but going over the years, it kind of is not in good financial position. As it gets better, then it gets worse.
Ebb and flow.
No,
Thanks.
good report.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank
Good to
you.
hear it.
If there are any questions, I'd be happy to come back and do it all.
Maybe we'll give you that extra.
We'll schedule a special meeting, just for those that,
Just those that want.
yeah, get some coffee, maybe some donuts.
You're very thorough, Lenny.
Very thorough.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom.
Thank you so much. Okay. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
one.
All right. On to the regular agenda, not the regular agenda, but the agenda. We'll start with the consent agenda. And I'll accept the motion to accept the consent agenda. Motion.
Second.
By John, second by Lena. Any questions? You have a favor?
Take attention, I'm like, I have no questions.
No questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. And the consent agenda, by the way, covered pages 2 to 6. Okay. Finance, action item 1, resolution to accept the donation. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the donation of 1 clarinet, 2 flutes, and 1 melodica to the district from Patricia Greco Peters. Resolution.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fontana. Questions about that?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. 2, resolution to transfer money to employee benefit accrual liabilities reserve fund. Whereas the Rome City School District, you're going to have to refer to it as the school district, established an employee benefit accrual liabilities reserve fund pursuant to section 6-P of the general municipal law. And whereas the education law, section 3653 requires that no monies may be paid or transferred into any reserve fund established by a school district unless expressly authorized by a resolution of its Board of Education. And whereas it has been determined by the Board of Education of the school district that up to $257,263 held in the unreserved fund balance of the general fund are surplus funds, and that it is in the school district's best interest to transfer such monies to the school district employee benefit accrual liabilities reserve fund. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the school district does hereby approve the transfer of up to $257,263 from the unreserved fund balance of the general fund to the employee benefit accrual liabilities reserve fund created in accordance with section 6-P of the general municipal law. This resolution shall take effect as of June 30, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Manis. Any questions?
What's exactly that fund?
So
what is it?
One left.
A date there.
It's our reserve fund from employee benefit accrued liability. Basically, it's calculation we do that takes everybody's potential terminal leave, employees sick time that they may get paid out in retirement, does a calculation of what that liability could be, and then we can reserve after that amount. This resolution brings it up to the full calculation, fully funding that potential liability.
Thank you.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, action item 3. Resolution to transfer money to ERS Retirement Contributions Reserve Fund. Whereas the Rome City School District and after the school district established an ERS Retirement Contributions Reserve Fund pursuant to section 6R of the general municipal law. And whereas the education law, section 3653 requires that no monies be paid or transferred into any reserve fund established by a school district unless expressly authorized by a resolution of its Board of Education. And whereas it has been determined by the Board of Education and school district that up to $1,667,950 held in the unreserved fund balance of the general fund or surplus funds, and that is in the school district's best interest to transfer such monies to the school district's ERS Retirement Contributions Reserve Fund. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the school district does hereby approve the transfer of up to $1,667,952 from the unreserved fund balance of the general fund to the ERS Retirement Contributions Reserve Fund created in accordance with section 6R of the general municipal law. This resolution shall take effect as of June 30, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Reddick. Any questions?
Dave, could you explain a similar thing as you did with the previous resolution, please?
Sure. ERS and TRS. TRS is a subcategory of the ERS Retirement Reserve Fund, both legal reserve funds. It essentially allows you to reserve monies for ERS contributions for staff. So everybody that's non-instructional as part of the New York State Employee Retirement System, we're allowed to set aside monies in a reserve capacity to pay those expenses if we need it. Some examples of where it could happen if you had a spike in rate of what the district had to contribute for ERS staff. And you'd hope to be able to mitigate that over time and not necessarily have it hit a budget immediately with that's what their reserves are for. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4. Resolution to transfer monies to TRS Retirement Contribution Reserve Fund. Whereas Warren City School District, and after referred to as the school district, established a TRS Retirement Contributions Reserve Fund pursuant to section 6R of the general municipal law, and whereas the education law 3653 requires that no monies may be paid or transferred into any reserve fund established by a school district unless expressly authorized by a resolution of its Board of Education. And whereas it has been determined by the Board of Education of the school district that up to $624,238 held in the unreserved fund balance of the general fund or surplus funds, and that it is in the school district's best interest to transfer such monies to the school district's TRS Retirement Contribution Reserves Fund. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education of the school district does hereby approve the transfer of up to $624,238 from the unreserved fund balance of the general fund to the TRS Retirement Contributions Reserve Fund created in accordance with section 6R of the general municipal law. This resolution shall take effect as of June 30, 2022. I move the resolution. Second by Dr. Fontana.
No, it wasn't me.
It was Elena.
Oh, sorry. Elena.
That's okay.
Seconded by Ms. Reddick. Any questions? I just noticed that the reference to the statute is the same. Is it the same section?
It's, yeah, I suspect it's gotta be, we did have those vetted, but it's the TRS reserve fund is considered a sub-reserve of the ERS reserve fund. They're kind of one, but we have to account for them separately.
Okay, well,
But-
that's fine. It's.
And the rationale that you just mentioned applies to this as well.
Yes,
Yes.
except for the TRS.
Right.
contribution.
I'm just saying this for the general public's, yeah.
No, I just
I'm
want to
sure
make
there's
sure.
one person watching, but whatever.
One person will have one question.
That's right. It's true.
Yeah, no, okay, I just saw that they were the same section. I just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure.
yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So item 5. Money's behind it. Yeah, yes.
Yep.
Look at that.
Good catch.
Yes. Resolution to transfer monies to insurance reserve. Fund. Whereas Rome City School District, and after referred to it as the school district, established an insurance reserve fund pursuant to section 6N of the general municipal law. And whereas education law, section 3653 requires that no monies may be paid, transferred to any reserve fund established by a school district unless expressly authorized by a resolution of the Board of Education. And whereas it has been determined by the Board of Education of the school district that up to $1,860,673 held in the unreserved fund balance of the general fund or surplus funds, and that it is in the school district's best interest to transfer such monies to the school district's insurance reserve fund. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the school district does hereby approve the transfer of up to $1,860,673 from the unreserved fund balance of the general fund to the insurance reserve fund created in accordance with the section 6-N of the general municipal law. This resolution shall take effect as of June 30, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nash. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 6. Seen this movie before. Resolution to transfer monies to the capital reserve fund. Whereas Rome City School District, the school district established a capital reserve fund pursuant to section 3651 of the education law. And whereas education law 3653 requires that no monies may be paid or transferred into any reserve fund established by a school district unless expressly authorized by a resolution of its Board of Education. And whereas it has been determined by the Board of Education of the school district that up to $3,250,389 held in the unreserved fund balance of the general fund are surplus funds, and that it is in the school district's best interest to transfer such money to the school district's capital reserve fund. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education of the school district does hereby approve the transfer of up to $3,250,389 from the unreserved fund balance of the general fund to the capital reserve fund created in accordance with section 3651 of the education law. This resolution shall take effect as of June 30, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Is this the second capital reserve?
Yes.
Okay.
This is partially funding the most recently approved capital reserve fund.
And so, do we know what the balance is for that fund right now?
That's the only.
That's the only, that's right. So,
For the 2022.
any other questions? I move all in favor, sorry.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Sorry, I'm getting punchy. Okay, second, resolution to transfer monies from the Workers' Compensation Reserve Fund, whereas Rome City School District, the school district established a Workers' Compensation Reserve Fund in accordance with General Municipal Law, Section 6J, and whereas there are currently monies in the Workers' Compensation Reserve Fund in excess of the amount required to pay costs authorized by General Municipal Law, Section 6J. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education of the school district does hereby approve the transfer of up to $61,571.63 from the Workers' Compensation Reserve Fund to the unreserved fund balance of the general fund. School district has determined such excess funds are not needed for existing liabilities in the Workers' Compensation Reserve. This resolution shall take effect as of June 30, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Kabuki. Any questions? All in favor?
Oh, I was gonna ask,
Oh,
just a
sorry.
quick question for the, so we're moving it out. If we needed to move it back, are we allowed to do that?
We are, it would take a board resolution
Yeah.
again. It's an estimation of our total potential liability on claims.
Yeah, I just asking that question because it is an estimate and the estimate could be
Yes.
the high or low. So I just wanted to make, for the record.
I guess, is a related question. So, is the capital reserve fund really the only one that we can't kind of move funds in and out?
There's
There are
very
others.
specific rules to each one of them. Capital reserve is certainly one of the least movable, I guess, of the group.
Unless the-
Because it's not tied necessarily to, say, a general fund potential expense. If you had an ERS spike and you apply the ERS reserve, you can do it through an appropriation right to the general fund budget. Capital reserve is pretty much relegated to capital project. They all have specific rules.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Action item 8, resolution to transfer monies from the tax certiorari reserve fund. Whereas the Rome City School District, the school district established a tax certiorari reserve fund in accordance with Section 3651 of the Education Law, and whereas there are currently monies in the tax certiorari reserve fund in excess of the amount required to pay costs authorized by Section 3651 of the Education Law, now therefore be resolved. The Board of Education of the school district does hereby approve the transfer of up to $581,161 from the tax certiorari reserve fund to the unreserved fund balance of the general fund. School district has determined such excess funds are not needed for existing liabilities in the tax certiorari reserve. This resolution shall take effect as of June 30, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second, Mr. Manch. Any questions?
Just going back to the audit report, that was one of the things that was mentioned, the tax certiorari. So even though that's mentioned, we still should have enough to keep it balanced, but again, we can move it back out if we need more in that fund, correct?
Yes, we
Yep.
do work with Ferrara, does work to look at what our potential liability is at June 30th at the end of the year. That's what we'll generally include, have the funds available, reserve up to, and then it always can change if, say, a big tax certiorari came along.
Yeah, like what he mentions in the report. He did mention one, I think.
Well, I think he mentions the same thing that we reduced.
Yeah.
That we reduced.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Action item 9. Resolution to dissolve extracurricular accounts. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, hereby approves the dissolution of the following extracurricular accounts upon establishing the Air Force JROTC Club as inactive and moving the funds to RFA JROTC. Move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lemecki. Any questions?
I do. I just, in the report, they mentioned, one of the things he said in the extracurricular report was the ones that aren't been active. Was this the only one that came up that was inactive, or are there more pending that could be
There'll
dissolved?
be more getting into looking at which ones were inactive, comparing that to the active ones. This one we wanted to bring forth because there were plans to use the money in the JROS program. There will be more.
There'll be more. That's thought so.
Good catch.
Okay. Any questions? Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And action item 10, resolution to accept the 2021-2022 external audit report from Barcangelo and Company LLP. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the 2021-2022 external audit report from Barcangelo and Company LLP be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Riddick. Any questions? All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Motion carried. And the next committee meeting will be November 1, 2022 at 9 a.m. here in the board office.
I've just been thinking about this. I know that the majority of our board members work. I don't know if anybody's, if there was just, because all the other committees are meeting after work hours. I don't know, because it's hard. If there was any interest, I can tell by the excitement that this is just a committee that
Yeah.
everyone really wants to be on, but I just wanted to bring it forth, just to
Yeah, I mean, if
mention that.
anybody else is interested and they can't make it, and that interest is going to be consistent
Right.
throughout the year,
right.
then I don't
Yeah.
have any issues moving it. It has been a good time for me, but if anybody else wants to.
I appreciate.
I appreciate
it.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a
I
block
just,
of
I felt I
time.
did my public duty here. So,
You can come. We're about to party in.
So we can keep on serving the omelets and the pancake buffet and all that. Okay.
yeah.
keep it on
What day is
QT.
November 1st.
I mean, like-
Day of the week.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Probably Tuesday. that's
Yeah, they're
usually the-
usually Tuesday.
Yeah, you say.
I try to do them ahead of or around the same time to do the agenda plan. Sessions. So,
I may take you up on joining more frequently. I just have to figure out work schedule.
Okay. All right, well, like I said, if it turns out to be a bad time, let me know, but like I said, I try to line up the agenda. Meetings. That's why, we do it at that time. But it certainly could be moved on the plus.
I just thought it was a good time because so much great information was presented tonight that you just want to learn more because it's just the best.
Yeah, well, but that audit's only twice a year.
Oh, there's good stuff every meeting of the finance committee. There's all
Like I
good
said.
stuff.
There's plenty other committees if you want to join them.
Yeah. Yeah, I can, the next one coming up, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
I'm on, I know, I really am. We have action items, resolution to approve mentors for the 2022-2023 school year. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Ken.
thanks.
Your evening. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the approval of the following teachers as mentors for the 2022-2023 school year be approved as listed on page 11 and 12 of tonight's agenda. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bucky, any questions?
Is it teacher mentors or mentors for students?
Teacher mentors, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Sorry, is there a criteria that changes what compensation they get for it?
Yes, by contract, there's a difference between having one or two mentees.
Okay. So new teachers are assigned a mentor?
Yeah, by law, every first year teacher needs to have, a probationary teacher has to have a mentor. There's a mentor mentee process as part of the probationary period.
You get any sort of report on that, or they just do it and hope that it goes well?
It's just a checkbox that they have a mentor available to them.
Okay.
The
Really
APPR law is the process that really determines whether or not somebody moves forward through probation. But as far as the mentor mentee process goes, we try to keep it away from being an evaluative thing. It's really meant for the mentees to have direct access to a veteran teacher to ask questions that would be
Mhm.
more comfortable than an administrative normally.
All of the mentors are required to keep a log of their meetings with the teachers.
Okay.
and dates
Okay.
that They do, so I keep track of all of these logs for the mentors. And I work with Jessica, with the teacher center.
Okay.
We have meetings, we have meetings once a month, also to make sure. that
Okay.
everything's going-
No, that makes a lot of sense. I just know if you become a mentor and then if you don't do anything, but
Oh, no, yeah, they
okay,
do.
that's
They
kind of
do.
what I was
They do a lot
asking,
of
so.
work. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other question? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 2, resolution to appoint district committee on special education for the 2022-2023 school year as defined by part 200.3 regulations of the Commissioner of Education in section 4402 of education law. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the following individuals be appointed as members of the Committee on Special Education for the 2022-2023 school year. Catherine Gay, she's a sub-chairperson for, and Morgan Fee and Leo Smith. They're all sub-chairpersons and they're school psychologists. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Kennedy. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Objections? Okay, carried.
I have to do my little thing now, huh?
If you want about
No.
your next committee meeting.
Well, yeah.
You don't have to give a report.
No, good to nice. I do want to say, I wanted to shout out to our director of supported learning today, because she came in and gave us a nice update on where our supported learning classes are. It took the majority of the meeting. It was a long discussion. I want to give kudos to her for getting that ready and taking time out to report that. We had a good discussion on AIS at the secondary level, and that's a work in progress. Keep working. It's like I said, for me, it's a 20-year work in progress, but all good things. And then Chris brought up that I don't know if the public is going to be aware of this, that the state is going to all computer-based testing for 3 through 8. Yeah, by 2026. So there is discussion of what we're going to do this year to kind of prepare our district and teachers for by 2024. Next year, what's grades,
Grades,
something for science.
Grades 5 and 8 will be for ELA, math and science will be for 2024, and then they'll phase in 2 grade
Yeah.
levels.
So discussion what we could do this year to kind of do some prep work for that. So that's kind of our summation. So, and our next meeting is November 22nd at 4 p.m.
Now, I don't know, seeing this.
Oh, yes, that was my, yes.
Okay.
A big shout out, John and I both have grandchildren at Ridge Mills, and they're doing a curriculum night, this Wednesday. And for just the parents, but they're going to provide a brief overview about curriculum. They're going to share ideas, strategies, and tips on how to parents to support their children's learning. I think it's just a
It's
great idea,
yeah.
a great idea. And I hope that maybe, some
Spread
other
it.
schools can maybe,
Spread it to
Spread
other-
the- yeah,
other schools,
yeah.
yeah.
So-
Joy did one last week.
Yeah.
Joy had a similar night for families last week, and I think Bellamy had one recently too.
Oh,
Just trying to
okay.
think back.
Yeah.
Were they well attended?
I believe the Joy one, he said he had over 200 people registered to go. They usually do a pre-registration, so
Yeah.
you know what to plan for and expect, so.
Now, that's a great idea.
That's a
Yeah.
great turnout too.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
Yeah,
Or Dr. Fontaine.
Karen's good too.
You are up. That's right.
Okay, action item 1, resolution to appoint non-instructional personnel, long-term substitute. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following non-instructional personnel, long-term substitute named Anne Marie Calcara Brachia, occupational therapist, salary of $55,560, effective September 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. I move resolution.
Second,
Second by Mr. Nash. Any questions? All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Number 2, resolution to grant tenure. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby grants the following individual tenure: Kristen Zlatnitsky, elementary teacher.
Yeah.
Effective November 1st, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second by Mr. Timothy. Any questions?
What school is here?
I don't remember where Kristen is off the top of my head, do you? I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
I'm just curious, that's all. Because normally I thought you normally have it on there, don't you?
When we appoint them, yes.
Okay,
This is for 10 years.
10
so
years,
it's
okay.
just general.
Okay.
Yeah. It might be at Stokes.
it's not important to the resolution.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 3, resolution to appoint non-instructional personnel probationary. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following non-instructional personnel probationary as listed on page 14 of tonight's agenda. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fontaine. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 4, resolution to appoint instructional personnel. Resolved that from the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following instructional personnel. Ajita Hosanovic, social worker.
You're on a
Social.
roll.
Yes, 60/10 plus MS, salary at $61,560 prorated. Effective date to be determined. The expiration date of the above probationary appointment for classroom teaching position is tentative and conditional only, except to the extent required by the applicable provisions of section 2509 of the education law. In order to be granted tenure, a classroom teacher or principal must receive composite or overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to section 3012-C and or 3012-D of the education law of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years. And if the classroom teacher or principal receives an ineffective composite or overall rating in the final year of the probationary period, the teacher shall not be eligible for tenure at that time. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Moody. Any questions?
So what does TBD mean? I mean, I know what it means.
After she's appointed, then she can work on getting out of her previous employment.
Okay, so she hasn't, and,
She won't submit a resignation until tonight.
okay, that's why
Next.
to be determined. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries.
Number 5, resolution to appoint instructional personnel. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following instructional personnel. Denise Vanderhoff Stokes, teacher's assistant, salary $18,308 prorated, effective September 26, 2022 to September 25th, 2026. Carly Wilson Joy, teacher assistant, salary $18,308 prorated from October 4th, 2022 to October 3rd, 2026. And Dolly Peterson Bellamy, teacher assistant, salary at $19,308 prorated, effective date November 2nd, 2022 to November 1st, 2026. I move the resolution.
Second by Ms. Markey. Any questions?
Why the difference?
Yeah.
Difference for
We have
Sorry.
2 at 18,308 and then 1 at 19.
what? Degree. There's an extra $1,000 in their contract if they hold a degree.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
hi.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 6, resolution to appoint non-instructional personnel provisional. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following non-instructional personnel provisional. Jeffrey Sessions, business office position, senior account clerk, salary $37,033 prorated, effective October 17th, 2022. And Ian Conley, business office position, assistant purchasing agent, salary $51,000 prorated / degree, effective date November 1st, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
I'll do that to Mr. Mangelino. Any questions?
I think he's probably a good addition.
Yes,
From what I
fantastic.
know of him.
Yes. It'll be a tremendous addition.
All in favor?
Hi,
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 7, resolution to appoint extracurricular clubs. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following extracurricular clubs. Kayla Garamone, building RFA, position co-advisor, club class of 2023, salary at $2,000, effective date September 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. I move the resolution.
second,
Second by Mr. Nash. Any questions?
Just the point of information, you're gonna see an adjustment to the salary when they went through and did the salaries for the class advisors. They misunderstood how we normally pay the class advisors. So we have 2 columns in the RTA contract. One is for if you're a sole advisor and one is if you're a dual advisor. The difference is with our class clubs, our class advisors, we always have dual advisors, but we pay them out of a single stipend column. So this stipend is a little bit lower than what the class advisor is supposed to get, but so they can make sure they're doing work. I just want to make it known that you will see an adjustment to Kayla as well as the other class advisors that previously appointed because they were mislabeled. We just came to fruition today with the RTA and we'll correct that. Didn't want you to see this probably next agenda and wonder why all of a sudden it's a different amount.
Okay, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
And action item 8, resolution to create positions. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby creates the following positions: modified boys basketball coach, boys JV volleyball coach, Knights Unlimited advisor, Seal of Civic Readiness advisor, drone soccer advisor, Future Business Leaders of America advisor. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lebecky, any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like for the modified boys basketball coach and the boys JV, are these like creating second teams?
Boys volleyball is not. This is our first year having a
Oh,
boys
yeah.
volleyball team that was added to the budget last year. We just didn't have we missed the boat on creating the position. The boys modified basketball coach is a second modified basketball team. We had, I think, Mr. Stamboli said they had over 45 students show interest at the modified level. So one team would not suffice.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks.
So most likely we'll have the next meeting, the names that go along.
I
with
believe
these.
we should, yes.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Our next meeting is November 21st at 3:15 p.m. right here in this room.
I'll see. It looks like you have a late night.
Oh, this is nothing.
You should have been here last.
All right. Action item number 1, resolution to accept the first reading of policy number 3120, duties of the superintendent. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the first reading of policy number 3120, duties of the superintendent be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item number 2, resolution to accept the first reading of policy number 1230, public participation at board meetings. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the first reading of policy number 1230, public participation at board meetings be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lebecky. This isn't the public comment, right? This is.
No. This is not public.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item number 3, resolution to accept the first reading of policy number 2210, board organizational meeting. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the first reading of policy number 2210, board organizational meeting be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fontana. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Action item number 4, resolution to accept the first reading of policy number 0115, student harassment and bullying prevention and intervention. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the first reading of policy number 0115, student harassment and bullying prevention and intervention be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nash. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Action item number 5, resolution to accept the first reading of policy number 0115-R, student harassment and bullying prevention and intervention regulation. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the first reading of policy number 0115-R, student harassment and bullying prevention and intervention regulation be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mangelino. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item number 6, resolution to accept the first reading of policy number 0115-E, student bullying and harassment complaint form. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the first reading of policy number 0115E, student bullying and harassment complaint form be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Becky. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Action item number 7, resolution to accept the first reading of policy number 4502, non-bid purchasing. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the first reading of policy number 4502, non-bid purchasing be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Angelino. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Action item number 8, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 2350, board meeting procedures. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 2350, board meeting procedures be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Riddick. This is the public comment, right?
Yep.
Correct. I will only say, and I had forgotten until Mr. Hempy mentioned it today at the public comment section, that we did try this before, and it was not a procedure that I think went well with the public.
What exactly is it?
It was the public comment where we divided it into 2 different sessions during the meetings, and people had to kind of wade through the agenda at the end to make their public comments. I like to kind of make these things as flexible as possible, because each board is different, and they may decide to do public comment completely different than what we might be doing here this year. I think that by rigidly saying this is the way that it has to be, I think it kind of limits us in trying to adapt to what the current situation might be as it relates to public comment. And so it's kind of like I see it like the committee meeting kind of policy where for certain boards it suited that board to have 2 meetings every couple of weeks, and for this particular board, it didn't suit us. We felt a little differently about it, and we were able to have that flexibility to change it. And so I think that we should probably have that same flexibility as it relates to public comment. Not that I didn't respect the work that you did on this particular one, and I apologize, I wasn't around for the first read for this one. So to bring it up now as a second read, I know that you guys have done some work on it, and I apologize. But I'm probably going to be a no on this, because like I said, I think that we just need to have that flexibility, and it should be something that a board discusses on a year-to-year basis based on what they're hearing and seeing. So that's where I'm at.
I agree. Going through it, it was something that was already tried not too long ago. I mean, even seeing people coming now and they want to say what they need to see, people have to go back to their families. Maybe it's not as flexible. Really thinking about it, making someone stay. I mean, I feel bad. She has to stay for the, I gotta go to bed, do homework. So I think Dr. Hinkley made some really good points too. We want to think about that. We've all been in the other situation where we want you to say something, and then we have other things to go to. So, and I do apologize too, Cassie, because it's the second reading. I know we've done work on it, but
We'll make a resolution to table it,
Sure.
and then we'll change it and bring it back.
So, and I get the intent was to try to, maybe separate the public comment from when we're actually commending students and other groups for their accomplishments and whatnot. I think that's something that we could still kind of bifurcate if we needed to. Moving forward, if we thought that there's kind of a contentious evening, and then we're trying to recognize people who, work hard and earn some achievements that need to be recognized, I think that we could probably structure a meeting such that, they're not being tainted by, maybe some comments that are incendiary. So I do get the motivation behind it.
I think it was two when we read it, right? So that the public would have the opportunity to see what's on the agenda
They do
Right.
today.
and then make comment on the agenda items for the first,
Yep.
public comment.
Right.
And then do the second the other way
And again, you can decide to do that. you know,
together.
you
You're
know,
saying, because you want someone before we, I mean, it makes sense. Before we vote on something, we would want the public to see the agenda and be able to speak on the items before we vote as a board. That's my understanding of it.
So this came up, we talked about, I think that came up, right?
Yep.
That
talked
we do
about that.
publish the agenda ahead of time, so people would know if their topic or what they'd like to discuss was an agenda item, or if it would kind of fall under the public, the true open public comment.
I will add, being in multiple districts, Rome being the only one that does not do the 2 public comment period. A lot of times what this method deters people from is coming to grandstand in public about things that really should not be spoken about in public, meaning particular people, particular topics that are, things that the board can't talk about because, it is executive session material. To Dr. Happy's point about the community being engaged in your meetings, if they have to stay to be engaged with the whole meeting, they tend to learn more about what it is that you do at the table and the conversations that you have than showing up and just ridiculing the board or the district and then walking away. And I'm not to say that it's a deterrent for that, but generally speaking, it does prevent people from saying things publicly that are not public comment materials without any one of you at the table having to say, you got to stop talking about this, please. And I think the past year we've seen some of that where it becomes very challenging. And then it does require people to be more engaged with your work, right, wrong, or indifferent. So there's pros and cons, and I agree with Joe. I think we talked about initially when it came up that we had tried it, and I think we did it for it maybe only lasted 1 meeting. And it was exactly because the few people that came, and I think you see it here, right? People say their piece and they want to leave. And the few people that did come to public comments at the time, they weren't coming to really vent anything inappropriate. They just came because there's something they want to mention. We had maybe one person, a meeting that would want to speak. And that individual just didn't want to stay to the end. So it is a tough thing to do, but it's not an uncommon practice that if it's something you want to move forward with, it'll take growing pains, and I'm sure it'll take strength because people will not be happy if you continue down this certain road, but speaking to the pros and cons, having experienced both sides, of it,
Right.
I've seen both sides of it.
One of the cons, I think, then is maybe chilling public comment, because, people don't want to stick around and wait to the end of the meetings, which, I get, we want to try to get them more engaged, but at the same time, they have lives to lead too. And as far as, I think you're right. I don't think it's going to be a deterrent. I mean, if there's certain comments that people want to make, they're gonna, they're gonna hang in there and make those comments regardless. And we all know that there's a group of individuals that are regulars here that are going to make those comments because they're just highly opinionated people. And I don't know that any policy that we have on the books is going to prevent them from making those types of.
You're not wrong.
So
I'm very familiar with the regulations.
yeah. So, I mean, like I said, and again, if you want to do it this way, you still have that flexibility to do it. If we, word the policy as such, just to say, maybe we have some sort of a determination at the beginning of the year when we're doing our meetings in July as to how we want the public comment structured. Or you just leave it such that, like I said, we can do it from meeting to meeting as to how we want to do the public comment. I know it doesn't really offer the public, if we were to change it suddenly, I know that probably might not be met well, but sometimes it's nice to have that flexibility.
So we're gonna table it so we can process it and then bring it up the next.
Maybe we can tweak it and
Well, I would just say this is a policy, so it's not going to count for every scenario. So to me, we should figure out what our standard is. And let's, to your example, 3 people show up, they we know they have their cards filled out. We know it's gonna be a long meeting, whatever it is. We can make a discretionary choice to say, it's gonna be a long one, guys. You wanna go during the public comment? I guess that's our decision, right? I would hate to,
Sure.
I don't know how to word something like that in a policy when it's discretionary choice.
All right, well.
Unless you put it-
I've jumped into it, so I'll certainly help you with that. But yeah, we can table it. Not completely abandon it, but
Yeah, I would have a hard time with that piece. Because who decides who gets to speak and who doesn't get to speak at what meeting, and who is the person that has to wait versus the person that can go first. So I don't know if I would be comfortable with that. I think what Peter just said, I mean, it makes sense what Dr. Hamby says, people want to leave and go. It makes sense what you're saying too, Peter, so.
I mean, I think on the flip side of what Mr. Hamby said is he's also calling for transparency. So like, if you want to hear what's going on, this is the best forum to do so. So
Right.
we're not gonna appease everyone.
And again, they get the agenda ahead of time. It's out there. So it's.
no, I would, and I think he knows this. Rome's probably the most transparent district in the area, if not in the state. So, you know, and I think he knows that, but there are some things that I think that have been proposed in the past that maybe we didn't follow up on. That doesn't mean that we're not a transparent district.
I think it's important, you're right, my whole thing is to make sure that the community and parents and people who aren't able to, you know, if it's hard for them to find a ride to get here, so I think it's imperative when we stop doing the Zoom that I know you're working it out with the schools, to make sure that we travel to the different schools. And I think the keeping of the BOE is really important so that people can, you know, no matter what it is, be able to say that, you know, that this is, I know a lot of people email, sometimes they don't, but that's the difference. You're either gonna get people who are gonna wanna come here and say what they need to see, or people who are gonna email. And we have to be ready for both of those, and that's gonna be okay.
And that was something that he raised tonight too, and maybe it's probably part of your policy discussions is whether or not if somebody wants to email us a comment and having us read it into the record. That's something that I know he was a champion of. Something that's, I think, open for discussion as part of his policy. All right,
I mean, is it worth, this is me being new, is it worth taking a vote for as it stands?
And there's,
Or are we in disagreement? It needs to be reworked.
I've heard a suggestion table, and if we're in agreement on that, we can do that. If not, we can have them up and down vote.
I'm okay with tabling it for now, and then a bit more time to get the words just right. Maybe a little bit more discussion on it.
I'm with that too.
I'm good with
Yeah,
the
I am
table, so
too.
it sounds like the majority. So we'll do the tables.
And I just wanted to add, you know, I agree with what everybody's saying, and whatever we can do to encourage people to come and speak, you know,
Yeah.
create that open dialogue, I think is helpful, and will also, you know, work to Dr. Hamby's point about transparency, you know, that they feel comfortable coming in at any time and speaking, and we get to hear that feedback, because, you know, personally, I'm not in the schools, so I don't, you know, my kids aren't even school age yet, so to hear the public comments, very helpful to me to get that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'll accept a motion table.
Karen did.
Motion
Second.
second by Mr. Nash. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item is tabled.
Action item number 10, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 2120.2, voting procedures. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 2120.2, voting procedures be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fontaine. Any questions? I got it.
Oh.
Any
Should.
questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that was action item 10. I think we missed action item 9.
Yes.
So let's go back to that.
Action item number 9, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 2250, board committees. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption for policy 2250, board committees be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 11, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 2520, board member training. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 2520, board member training be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fontaine. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 12, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 2521, school board conferences, conventions, and workshops. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 2521, school board conferences, conventions, and workshops be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Becky. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 13, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 2700, board staff communications. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 2700, board staff communications be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nash. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 14, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 3000, goals and objectives for administration. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 3000, goals and objectives for administration be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fontaine. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 15, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 3100, superintendent of schools. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 3100, superintendent of schools be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 16, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 2510, new board member orientation. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 2510, new board member orientation be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mangelino. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 17, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 1050, annual district election and budget vote. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 1050, annual district election and budget vote be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 18, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 0300, accountability. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy number 0300, accountability be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mangelino. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 19, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 1000, community relations visions. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy 1000, community relations visions be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mangelino. Any questions?
I
All in
think that,
favor?
hold on, I think it might be vision, no S. Community relations vision.
Yeah. With that correction, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
All right, our next meeting is October 28th at 9 a.m. I will get our table discussion back out for review. We'll continue forging ahead.
Thank you. You guys are doing great work.
Can I just point out real quickly in response to Dr. Hempy, since Mike is here, for the community, we mentioned this last time, but none of these policies are really major revisions to what we currently have. This is simply a renumbering of the policy manual. So I think one of the things that Dr. Happy pointed out with the vast number of them, it is abnormal to have this number of policies on any agenda for the district. They're not new policies. Most of them have 0 revisions from what we currently have. It's just a new number. And the revisions that we do have are very minor in nature. So just want to make sure people knew that there's not major changes to district policies going on. It's simply a renumbering and an updating of the manual.
And that's because we hired Lisbon to help us with it.
Correct. It's been an ongoing project for a couple of years, and we've just finally starting to plow through some of them, as we would be able to move this fast if there were major revisions to the policies.
Right.
But because Dr. Happy did bring it up, I want to make sure that we mentioned at the last meeting that this was happening, but it will be an ongoing thing all year long. People just need to know it's really policy number changes, not major changes to what we're doing.
So to what he was saying, when does the public, how does that work? He's saying he didn't see it online, so after the second revision, we put that if anything has been
On the-
revised.
On the website, any of our policies that are on an agenda for movement are on our website.
Right, with
There's a spreadsheet or a chart on the website that has supporting documents that are a part of the agenda that they
And
will
it
see
has
them
to be
under
posted, is it 1 week before
24 hours.
or 24 hours?
Mhm. But they're all there, and then anything that gets formally adopted then goes into the policy manual.
And, we have the first read, so you have
Right.
3 weeks to
Right.
review it.
And then look
Until
at.
the second.
and go- Okay.
Just a couple of things. I know that there's nothing listed under miscellaneous business, but I just wanted to talk about some things that are kind of outstanding. The interview for candidates. Was there a date that was that we settled upon as far as interviews
We did the doodle poll,
The
right?
doodle poll.
It was the morning hours.
of what day?
I
Of
don't
that
remember the
week that
days.
she gave us the option of every day that week.
Did we
4
talk
days.
about doing it during the day? I mean, I'll have to just take it off, but there was a day that I could just.
Next week.
Yeah, I was wondering how come it was decided to be the morning. I don't.
Did we come
I
up
don't
with a
remember
final
talking
one?
about that.
I didn't think I saw a result of the last.
We did
meeting.
not.
Did everybody
I'm sure
know?
I'm probably holding it up.
I haven't been in since I.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer an evening. I don't know if you guys all feel the same, but
Well, I think you need to, because some of you guys work one and
Right.
the applicants work, you can't have it during the day when.
I was surprised it was on the doodle poll, actually, because I didn't know how that was determined.
I just,
I mean,
Was
we're all
gonna
here
take it
now.
off.
Maybe we could get our.
Yeah.
it looked like,
But I didn't think it was fair to the people who were coming in. If they work, they had
Right.
to take a day off.
Right.
That didn't seem fair to them.
No,
mm,
so maybe if we have our phones out, we can maybe look at some days next week, which would be okay. Are there any days that are not good? I know Tuesdays are not great.
we
for
have
me.
to go to the.
Yeah,
some of us are going to the
conferences next
conference
week.
Thursday and Friday.
Thursday and Friday,
And I'm away for work in the beginning of the
at
week.
the beginning of the week. How does Wednesday?
Is that the 26th?
Yes,
Okay.
I can't do the
can't do the
26th.
26th.
Like Small's birthday, I'm looking at
Oh, well, I see
What
that
time
you
we
cook a
coming
very
over?
good dinner then.
beef bourguignon.
Are you away on the 24th? Is that when you're away?
Uh,
And I meant,
No, I'm not away on the 24th.
just because that's a Monday meeting night, I didn't know if we kind of keep our schedules open because that's when we meet.
I'm open
So-
on the 24th. I just am away on the 25th and 26th.
Be Monday.
Monday,
24th.
24th, I'm good for that too.
24th?
Yeah.
All right, in the evening, okay, because I know I'm getting back from,
And we got people, well, we may not, because I just have all.
I'm going out of town, but I should be back by Monday evening, so. So if we want to pick a time, is that going to give the candidates enough time?
How many candidates do we have?
Yeah,
We have
that's a
three?
week.
Three.
Three.
Okay,
We're looking at the 24th at night.
So do we want to start, say, at 4 o'clock and
Sure.
At what
Okay.
time? 4
on the
o'clock,
24th?
the 24th.
Start at
So
4,
let's,
3.
get notice out to them and let them know. that we have some slots open on the 24th if they want to come in.
The 24th.
How long is each interview?
Well,
What was it
I
before,
think-
like
I mean,
15 minutes?
Yeah, how?
Yeah, I think there's
I
some
think we
people want
How
longer.
long were you here last time? Do you remember?
I mean, I'm a talker.
Yeah.
I tried to long.
Maybe a half an hour.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to your.
I know.
Yeah.
I had no care.
Let my ideas-
Let my ideas fail, but I tried.
I'd say, yeah, like 20 minutes long.
Yeah, I wouldn't go over that.
So we'll start at what, 4 or 5? What time do you want to start?
44th is.
24th at 4. And then we'll have the next one at 4:20.
Spicy.
How about making it? Giving us a 5-minute leeway just in case we run over. So they're not waiting. I'm just, you know,
Yeah,
give a 5-minute over.
4:25,
yeah. So.
and then the next one will be at 4:50.
That idea stuck.
Got that?
And then we're gonna stay back and
Discuss.
deliberate.
Yes, we'll deliberate that evening and probably come up with some sort of a decision. And we'll
And
contact the
just-
candidates and then,
So we'll contact them.
What,
yeah, I'll reach out after we've.
Monday,
what about the
24th.
questions?
Oh, yeah. Then we had a.
We
Those
have,
are the ones
we
from
should
last
have,
time.
yeah, we
Still
should
have
have
them, Karen?
a list of questions, right?
Yeah, but.
No, I think, did we come up with them ourselves?
We did.
Yeah,
I
but
might, I might have them somewhere.
we have them, I'm just saying there's some. That might not, we might want to take a look at them because I think
Yeah.
there was talk about the redistricting was on there and stuff. So
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
sure how
yeah.
many are still
If you
pertinent.
have a copy, can you email us? And then we can just maybe talk in the email.
Yes.
I think that'd be easiest.
Am I doing that? Okay.
I think we
No, I
think
could
you-
do it. I just
You
want to
like
make sure.
volunteering your
Well,
I do, I know.
Well, we think you have, I think you have it on your
Yeah, no, I
computer. so.
I think I was head of the ad hoc for that. anyway.
Yeah,
You're,
Been selected.
you're so good
Yeah.
at doing these sorts of things, which
Uh-huh.
brings me to my next point.
Mhm.
Peter, I just wanted to let you know that I think we hit upon the board goals, right?
Yes, I sent them to you, yes.
So I think we set aside a time to meet, discuss when we want to go over those.
Okay.
Okay, so if you just give me a call. I think that's it. I don't know if anybody else has any miscellaneous business they want to bring up at this point.
Oh, actually, one question, somebody asked me if there was any plans for the Staley building being torn down or what the future plan, yeah, Staley, for the building that flooded, what the future plans was for the actual building
Our plan would be to demolish it. Yes,
and what steps like need to be taken to,
it would need to be a public vote and be part of a capital project to raise the building.
I just have one quick thing. I brought to the education committee meeting today, the Elks Club is revisiting a essay contest for 5th through 8th graders. First prize is $1,000, second is $500, and third is $250. So I gave it to Chris today.
I know they used to do it about Francis Bellamy, right? So-
This time it's the American Dream.
Gotcha.
So they have
Trustee
lots of
Rhodes?
money if they want to give to switch kids, so.
Yes.
Elaine and I attended the School Board Institute training. When was this? September 29th. Really good. It was a lot of like education law updates. But like a really big turnout.
Is that Syracuse?
No,
It was right, so the topics were like COVID, student management. There was some DEI focus. So I took an abundance of notes. I have not put them anywhere. But yeah, I would definitely encourage anyone the next time it comes around to try to attend.
Sounds good. And informative.
Anything else? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Mangelino, second by Mr. Act. Any questions about that? Assuming we're all in favor?
Mhm.
Hi.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
sent lots with me, so, you know.
Yeah, we know.
need some extras. He said he's gonna be coming soon. That's like.
Good luck. When's your game? Friday?
Yep.
Cool.
So, all right.
Yeah, we're missing the last football game.
See you then.
Well, wait. What do you mean? So it's a record.
Ours?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, it's not.
We're in Liverpool
Oh, you're in.
at
Liverpool.
5.
Why did I think you guys got a home section?
I wish. We were close. We were close, but
All right. Well, listen, good luck.
thank you.
Be in Tennessee. I'll be
I know,
rooting-
I've heard.
I'll be rooting for you guys.
I've heard.
Hmm.
Have a good trip.